Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Loudoun Agile Network. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful, almost end of summer evening. It's such a joy for us to have Laxmi, one of our co-organizers, present today a dojo on DevSecOps. A little about Laxmi, who's an enterprise Agile coach and a DevSecOps leadership coach. She trains and she practices Agile, and she brings 20 years of experience in the IT world for both federal government and corporate America. She's an ardent volunteer, not just here at Loudoun Agile Network, but several other appointments. I know recently she was judging a fashion show in North Carolina, and then she did this amazing South Asian community event in DC a few weeks ago, which was attended by how many people, Lakshmi?
15,000.
50,000. Wow, mind blowing. And
Yeah.
so it's just such a privilege that she's taken the time to talk to us today. Thank you, Lakshmi. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Meenakshi. That was really great introduction, sweet of you. And thank you, Anju. So here am I. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining on this beautiful summer evening. And you picked to be here, which is very, very appreciative of you all. Bit of me, I'm Laxmi Muthyala, as I'm working for GT, Grant Thornton, Enterprise Agile Coach. And I have an immense pride and take pride on the DevSecOps areas. And coming from the technical background, I feel like, coaching DevSecOps and coaching my teams, Agile teams on implementing best practices, it gives me so much pleasure, happiness to see teams thrive in the technical areas related to DevSecOps. So without further ado, I'm going to start the session. I think of questions. I'll try to end the session by 7:45 or 7:50 to have question and answers in the end. So please have your questions in the parking lot. And we have Anju or Meenakshi can look into the questions in the chat window. So feel free to, I think right now you're all in mute by default, but you can unmute or have the questions by the end of the session, okay? All right. Quickly, this session, I know a lot of great folks here, coaches, scrum masters, technical folks, program managers, different area expertise SMEs here. So I'm going to cover a bit of what is dojos, maybe it's something new for you all. Why do we need dojos? Especially why DevSecOps and why DevSecOps Dojos, right? And what are the phases of this whole dojo life cycle, and a bit more focus on DevSecOps building blocks, like 6 DevSecOps building blocks is. And then what is the MVP approach if you have to start a DevSecOps Dojos? Okay, so these are the high level points that I'm going to cover today. And I'm checking my time so I don't spend too much on one slide. But yeah, feel free to have your questions in between. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We are glad you are here. So what is dojo? Okay. So in Japanese terms, dojo is like a, maybe you might have already aware of, like it's like a martial arts. It's like a big hall where you do trainings on, martial arts trainings. So you might be wondering, what is dojo doing in a software industry, right? Who's getting kicked? Who's getting all this martial arts training? So in software world or in agile world, again, dojo is like any place that we all, especially the agile teams, it's an immersive learning environment. So we all, the teams, the agile teams, the folks who are interested in this immersive learning place, it's a great place to come, learn, transform, and do a lot of hands-on activities. Okay, so it's an intended place for shared learning. Okay, and it's a safe place. I say it a really safe place because this is more like transformation, right? And how to help these product teams who are going through transformation, but need to have more focused immersive learning environment. So this is the dojo is the place of the way. Okay. All right. Let me minimize this so you can see full screen. Okay. So dojo environment, if you see, right, teams, usually the enterprise agile teams at an organization, teams go through the dojo learning experience. So one of the key questions being asked is like, why do we need dojos? What is that it's not done via trainings that is done in dojos, okay? So dojos is a place where it's immersive learning where you spend like 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the dojo team challenges, and they come with their work. The teams, the product teams, the agile teams, they come with their challenges, right? And the dojo coaches, the SMEs, any specialized offerings, right? In this DevSecOps, I've listed out DevSecOps here. But if it's any specialized dojo offerings in collaboration with those coaches, SMEs, so they go through this immersive weeks of learning, and over the few weeks, the teams are independent and they own their, fully teamwork. They own how to do from whatever they have learned in the dojo immersive learning. They would be able to apply it after the end of the dojo transition period. Okay. All right. So you might be wondering if I have to start a dojo, or what are the stages of this dojo? Okay. So again, every organization is different, but especially the change agents, the leaders who are who really are compassionate about bringing the team's agility, performance, or the overall product performance to a next level. So there is a discussion among the leaders. What can we do to get these dojos in hand, right? So maybe you might be having coaching dojo coaches, or the Agile Center of Excellence, like you might have a group of coaches in your organizations. So here is what few recommended phases of the dojo life cycle. So nomination is the number one. So where teams, again, the leaders of your product team or the group or division, right? Hey, my team needs to, my team has this challenge, right? And we really want to whole team to experience this learning environment, and then they want to learn this as a team and apply it after the end of the dojo session. So we nominate few product teams. And we do have nomination meetings, like, where we coaches work with this product teams. What is the challenge? What are the underlying pain points? And depending on the team's challenges, right? We do have different service offerings. Okay. So service offerings, some agile product teams look at, like, my team needs to have Scrum Dojo. I might need to know how my team might need to learn a benefit a lot if they want to learn about healthy backlog, how to maintain healthy backlog, or any specialized offerings that their challenges have, right? So we go through this whole nomination process, and either the team goes to understands what's in the dojo, the immersion learning. And then if the team decides, okay, I'm gonna pivot or persevere, right? And then once the team is ready to get into the dojos, immersive learning, they decide on. So then we begin into the preparation. So what is preparation? So what kind of preparation steps we need to take? Again, for DevSecOps Dojos, we usually look into things like, like, for example, the team wants to set up a CI/CD pipeline, or they want to do how to do test-driven development, or the team's challenges are, my continuous integration is not up to the point. I need to be more mature. So based on where their challenges are, so the coaches work with the product teams. Usually, we have 3 or 4 product teams that wants to be in the dojos. What preparation steps we can take? Either maybe like, do we have access permissions? Like, before we getting into the immersive learning a period of 3 to 4 months, 4 weeks, do we have those access permissions? Do we have all the right set of folks in the team to present for the immersion? Do we have, so basically we look into all the preparation steps to get ready into the immersion phase. So immersion is like a stage 3, like what do we do in immersion? That is where the whole dojo 6 weeks or 4 weeks of dojo session begins. So in immersion, we have, it's not more about just not about training, but in immersion, we do complete like hands-on activities. There are, we bring in partners like a specialized area challenge folks, wherein they can help the teams what challenges they are going through. And we have immersion. In each week of immersion, there would be some homework assignments. There will be workshops, the breakout sessions. So the whole team is going through a particular immersive weekly sessions. So, and then there's a retro for it, where the team is learning and all constantly giving feedback on what can be improved, right? By end of 4 or 6 weeks of dojo, they are fully experts in the challenge areas that they otherwise didn't have any idea, right? And in the transition, which is the last phase, they will be, so it is a support for like 2 to 4 weeks, depending on making sure how the teams are progressing after what they have learned in the dojos, and any follow-up questions that coaches have, the team has for the coaches. So that is the area where, the transition period is. And so, yeah, this is all about the dojo life cycle, nomination, preparation, immersion, and transition at a high level. And again, every organization has, a different way of doing it. But I think these are the, if you see, how teams come in and at the broad categories, these will be really helpful for your product teams if they are planning to do any dojos, immersive learning. Okay. So now the benefits of dojo. Okay. So again, see, this is unlike a training, right? Folks go to 2 to 3 days of training, but this is where the whole team is coming in for an immersion learning. And each week has workshops, breakouts, retros, show and tells. So that's a lot to learn and observe and be expert in the area. So that's really a great benefit in this dojos is the learning is very immersive. And there's a lot of collaboration, right? There's a lot I see that the team that I work with dojos, there's so much of bonding they have gained, like with the collaborative work, and understanding that, the team norms. They were able to ask questions. It's more interactive, and they were able to show the team demos. And I feel like the team spirit was improved a lot. And we are learning it all together, right? So that is also, when coming to the dojo sessions, right, one of the key things is they come with the work. So the immersive learning the teams are doing is actually on the current work the product teams are doing. So they have their sprint backlogs, they have the stories for the dojos. So they're dedicating that time completely on the dojos. Unlike, you have other stories in your backlog, and dojos stories are different. So when you are learning something as a team, there's so much of collaboration, the immersive learning, and you build that spirit and the focus, and also not to forget the retro feedback, which is all the time coming on a weekly basis to help improve, what can we do next, best for the next dojo, for the next week. So that is really a great place for the whole team. Okay. All right, so I hope there was a good intro on dojos and why we do dojos and what stages in the dojos. Now let's go into a bit on DevSecOps. So you might be wondering, okay, why do we have this adoption of DevSecOps, in place? Few key things that I would like to mention is, if you see, right, the complexity of IT environments back in the days and to now, right? See how our mobile phones, how we are deploying in the cloud space, how the IoTs, Internet of Things have come, right? So we are able to update the OS, even in your cars maybe, or even any gadgets, right? So the OS is updated and you see all of a sudden new features have come up. The dashboard looks so different. So the complexity of IT environment has tremendously evolved over the course of years, right? And also you see the simplified coordination, a lot of open source frameworks came up, developer communities came up, right? So there's open source tools, and customers' expectations have also increased. You have all the time faster time to market. The product is launching overnight, right? So quickly, and there's so much demand for faster time to market, along with the quality, not to forget that. And not that just that, if you see there's more advanced IT capabilities also, like, optimizations, big data analytics, you see monitoring and data analytics. So when all of these have changed, it's important as our software development, DevSecOps, the way we do development operations has also have to be changed, right? Or at least have to be in sync with this trending environments or infrastructure. So it's not just important, but it is how quickly we adapt is also important, and how quickly how strong we make this DevSecOps as a priority, because because of all these things have changed and evolved over time. So I want to share a little bit of, when we talk about DevSecOps, there are a few things that we have to keep in mind. What really makes those building blocks, right? When I look into my development operations, security, what do we have to look into, right? What is the foundational building blocks? So we have about 6 building blocks that I'm going to list here. That I'm going to talk about. The number 1 is integrated business development teams. So oftentimes we ignore this. Why do we need to have this integrated business development team? It's not a technical term, but if you see, right, the teams, the product teams, the agile teams, which we call product teams here, are we taking the end-to-end ownership, right? Do we have everybody in the team for our complete development, operation, security, starting from build to deploy? So it's important to have that integrated business development teams, which not just teams, but then have end-to-end cross-functional skill sets, right? So having that is really important. And once we have the skill sets, once we have the cross-functional skill sets, and we have those end-to-end responsibilities, things will be very, very easy. Versus, imagine we have siloed teams that are specialized teams of, for example, someone is doing testing, someone is doing deployment, someone is doing operations, and someone else is doing development. So there's so much of time lag that happens, which kind of delays our deployments, right? And there's so much of delays, and that gap increases day and day, right? So how do we cut that short, right? So important thing to have in mind is to get these highly collaborative, integrated development teams in place, where we have all kinds of skill sets within the team. And next thing I want to focus is on continuous integration. So what is continuous integration? I know we have a lot of non-technical folks here, but I think it's important as coaches, as leaders, we need to know these terms, like, how well is my product teams are leveraging the continuous integration building blocks. So what goes in this continuous integration, right? So it is, again, a development practice that requires, like, developers or engineers, or testers, automation engineers or testers, to integrate code into a shared repository. And like, you might be thinking, like, where is my code residing, right? in either GitLab or SVN. These are the code repositories, but how often are my teams doing the builds, right? Are we checking in the code every day? So this lot goes in this area of continuous integration. How is my code quality? How is my code coverage? How better is how error free is my builds? How much time it takes to reduce any issues within the build? So these are the things that are in the continuous integration area that we leaders, coaches need to know, and it really helps. And what are the ways we can improve on this continuous integration? So I'm going to talk about that in the next slide, but at a high level, continuous integration is again how often are our daily builds happening, and how is our code residing in our code repositories, things like that. Okay, and we have the third, number 3 is continuous delivery. So think of delivery is like a methodology that focuses on making sure software is always in a releasable state, which means are we doing the right testing, right? We have performance testing system, integration testing, regression. So making sure our application is always our software is always in a releasable state, so it's ready to be before it goes into a deployment. So all that falls under the delivery. And the deployment, which is again a practice that enables every change that passed into automation test to be automatically deployed to any environment. So all the deployments that we talk about, whether you're doing cloud, on-prem, so all the continuous deployments is in this block. And the fifth one is continuous monitoring and operations. So it's a lot of real-time information, data analytics. There are a lot of great tools that will check for our monitoring. Like, for example, we have Splunk, right? Anything that happens in real time on production environments, we have these Splunk dashboards. We have to monitor, make sure our production applications are running. How are they running? What is the strength of it? How does the how many APIs are incoming? How many, for example, how many errors are there currently in the production system? So these are all very transparent and helps in monitoring the health check of this production application. So that's something to look on. And the last one is standardized and automated infrastructure management. So now we talk so much about deployments and leveraging cloud environments. So how do we automate environment provisioning with infrastructure as a code? So these are a very great insights to learn and see how our product teams and agile teams are leveraging it to have a great DevSecOps maturity model. So here, I'm not going to read about everything, but this is a great slide to learn about each of these DevSecOps building blocks, and what are the typical issues you see currently, and how the benefits, what kind of benefits you can reap from adopting these DevSecOps building blocks, or 6 DevSecOps building blocks that I was talking about. Again, for the number 1 is the integration, having that great integrated business development teams, how helpful it is to have end-to-end ownership of the product, right? And versus, multiple handovers, right? And the continuous integration, how quickly error-free builds we can make within a few feedback cycles, how quickly I can do builds overnight or on continuously. Continuous delivery part, what are the benefits I can see is how frequently, how automatically, and how am I improving my quality testing? How am I doing my regression? How am I ready? How am I keeping my application state into a releasable state? And when it comes to deployment, you'll see, a lot of rapid delivery of small chunks of code, right? So deployment more often is very important. How often are we deploying? It's not about how big the deployments are, it's about how often. So more smaller deployments, but leveraging the pipeline, leveraging the automated processes, helps in allowing faster time to market. And how quickly can we resolve any issues if there are any deployment failures. This is all the key things to look for. And continuous monitoring and operations, right? As I said before, infrastructure, there's a lot of tools that helps in real-time analytical data, configuration management or monitoring and performance management. So these are the things that are, we can leverage best out of these tools that fall under the monitoring section. And not to forget the automated infrastructure, right? With standard service provisioning so quickly, you're spinning up the environment, and you are able to, the environments that are not needed, you are able to destroy it. So these are the things that are very, very important, and how quickly you can go from build to deploy if you follow these key building blocks and see how you can reap these benefits. Okay. All right, so again, this section is more about from the which state to which state, leveraging this, adapting this DevSecOps practices, see how the product teams can go from where, right, from the initial state to the mature state. Again, I'm not going to read through this, but this is a really great a slide to see how we can, product teams can leverage to go to that next mature level, okay? So you might be wondering, I have DevSecOps building blocks, I have dojos, where to get started off, right? What kind of approach should I take? How do I get started with? They have so much to do. There's so many challenges. Okay, what is first? You might be confused, or or is there a sequence, or is there a guidance on how I can help my team? Or as a team, which one we should be taking an MVP approach. So that's where these slides come into handy, right? So now, as we go through the 6 building blocks, right? So think about those, right? My MVP milestones. So maybe I will get started on continuous integration first, and take an MVP approach. Maybe in this quarter, I want to focus, maybe as a team, we want to focus on what can we mature in the continuous integration world, and see what are my key challenges and what are my KPIs to monitor them, right? So here, put together a nice milestones and KPIs to watch for. For example, if you're looking at the continuous integration, which is, again, keep the trunk green, which means, my builds, whenever I'm doing builds, I'm not erroring out, and keeping my trunk green, so no errors. So maybe think in terms of your milestones, like merge to trunk daily. As a team, are we merging it daily? Right? And what are we going to measure? Even if the goal is to have the stability, right? It's not about building, merging daily. It's about how error-free our builds are, right? So the KPIs to monitor that, right? And then validate changes by running automated tests at build time. Am I able to do that? So how much time, and you can monitor it, how much time does it take for the build fixes? If there are any errors, what is my time in between the builds to fix it? Are we able to, what is the average build time? So key things to, look for. Am I taking too long? So if it is taking too long for the build time, where is the problem area, challenge area? And see if any manual step is in process. Right, the goal is, a developer checks in a code, it automatically triggers a build, right? And the build should, and can deploy into another environment. So again, see how often are we doing it? How often how many errors are there, or what is the average time it takes to complete a build? And not to forget the unit test coverage, right? So a lot of us write code, but if how much of the coverage is currently being there, right? 80% or above, or maybe 90%. The more, the better, right? So unit testing is something it's very important, and why do we need to have that unit test coverage? Again, to have the quality code. And there are a lot of tools that give valuable information on the coverage, like for example, Sonar Cube, right? It has great validation rules. So maybe you can check with your tech leads and see, do we have Sonar Cube validations in place? There are also nice plugins that are available for software developers in their development environments. Having those plugins locally in the local dev environments, able to uncover all the vulnerabilities, web vulnerabilities, security vulnerabilities that are that are already in the development environment. So the developers or automation engineers, they can always proactively fix them before the build goes to other environments like testing environments. So these are the things. There are a lot of tools, but again, it's the awareness. It's the awareness and the discussion and the communication, and do we have those in place? So a lot of product teams that I have seen are aware of these things, but they or may not be aware of these things, but or even if they are aware of these things, there might be some issues with setting up those plugins, but they never got into the weeds of getting these fixed or completely leveraging the tools. So which kind of is delays their maturation level in continuous integration. So yeah, look into these areas and see how as a team you can help your agile teams to get to the next level of in this continuous integration milestones. Okay, so yeah, if you have to start somewhere, start from continuous integration, because that is where you're building the code. Okay, that is where the quality of the code is tested, and that is where we can have no errors, or we can proactively take control of the quality code and get rid of the errors, and look into all these key KPIs like average build time, your test coverage percentage. So this will help, these good metrics will help assess our CI maturation level. Okay. Again, there is something called as test-driven development. That is a really great place, especially for we are doing unit testing. This is a really great approach, like thinking along terms of testing, right? Shifting the testing to all the way to the left. So developing in terms of keeping testing in mind. So that is really important. And also not to forget the code reviews. Do we have good code reviews in practice? Right? Do we is the code review done by a developer, is been reviewed by another developer or a tech lead? Having another set of eyes to review is not only important, but it catches anything that otherwise the original developer might have forgotten. Okay, so there are tools like in GitLab, right? We do have nice tools for code reviews. So leverage that and see how the teams benefit. Okay. So again, that's how we start, like continuous integration. Okay, once the teams are are at a good state of maturation at continuous integration, right? Writing good code, having good coverage, and doing daily builds, right? And having all these web vulnerabilities or Sonar violations knowledge, and writing in test-driven development and code reviews are done, then what is the next level, right? Which is continuous delivery. Now think about how can my product team do testing well? Are my tests automated? How do we package all these things, right? And think about running the automation test, running the performances test, stress test, integration test. So making your application ready in a releasable state, right? That all comes under the continuous delivery realm. So how to maintain that deployable code base, right? So the key KPIs to monitor is, a percentage of deploys failed or number of functional regression system tests done, check on how much is passed, what's failed, how much time it took for the performance test, functional test coverage is done, not to forget the regression in all of these, number of automation validations run, right? So frequency of performance conducted, testing conducted. So all these fall under these areas. Again, if I also talk about the, testing is very important, and the more shifting the testing left is important, because you're getting that early feedback. And getting that early feedback is important because, you don't want to spend time later reactively fixing the defects. Get all those, leverage all these best practices, like even behavior driven development, if you have heard about that, right? It's like automating the acceptance testing, and writing the code in natural language, like acceptance criteria in natural language, and running these tests in your pipeline. So see how much value this brings in. So this falls under the continuous delivery, um, and that would be the next milestone approach. So maybe in Q2, think about few of these tasks in your Q2 to work on for the next level of maturation for your product teams. Okay. Let me do a quick check on time. Okay, I have 10 more minutes. Okay. So the third one I would suggest is, continuous deployment, right? How to deploy to production without downtime or risk. So now that teams are, good in the continuous integration or delivery, now what kind of deployments the teams can do? How do we run the automated performance or tests? And how is my, are there any manual touch points? Are we having, are we releasing it to users in phases? That is definitely a doable thing. Are we opening it up for all users, or we're using it, opening up to few users? Again, key KPIs to monitor is number of manual touch points in each release process, how much of downtime in minutes during deployment. Okay, so it's important to track this downtime. Where is the challenge? Why is the downtime more? And overall time to deploy, right? So these are the key things to look for. And if you are using, maybe deployments in cloud versus on-prem, there are a lot of things that you can keep track of and understand where the teams are struggling with manual touch points, and how we can avoid that and bring then an automation into it. And it's not easy, right? Suppose you are going into cloud environment, you really want your applications to run in cloud and automatically provision, but there might be so many challenges, with infrastructure or, security, right? So we need to address and see what are the MVP approach to take to get into the cloud, or how our teams can leverage the best of DevSecOps pipeline setup process. But again, it's more about understanding the key milestones, and what KPIs to monitor, and how to take the priority and then get going. So that will really help. I think, again, the last one, I would say, continuous monitoring, right? So now that the teams have gone into the deploy state, now how can you continuously monitor your production systems, handle the failures or faults automatically, right? Number of stack covered by telemetry. So, how is the application in real time working? Do I have these dashboards in place? What are the dashboards that really makes sense to this product? For example, your application might be having a lot of 404 errors, or maybe it's stack overflowing. So, you should have these custom dashboards in place, which all the time shows, on your Splunk dashboards, like this is where right now I have about 100 404 errors. I have 50 warnings. So when you see these dashboards, and it is showing all these important information, real-time information. So obviously think about it. Our priorities keep changing, right? So we now have a priority to fix the production issues versus, if you don't have these dashboards, and if you are not aware of this, how to use these dashboards, like for example, I'm speaking about Splunk, or you have observability like Instana, where you are understanding the user pattern, right? So it's important to aware of, be familiar with those tools, and create those custom dashboards, so you're gonna see them all the time, and see how as a team you discuss when what makes it sense, what is more priority for as a team to fix it, right? So we don't want to have 100 errors in the production system and do something else in our sprint backlog, right? So it's important to understand these dashboards and have, maybe a tech lead or all the tech folks in your team can work and get these dashboards up and running, and having that education is important, and see how the whole dynamics of the team discussion changes, right? So we all understand what the dashboard is saying, the product owner, the scrum master, the testers. So it's important to get that knowledge and be familiar with the application's health, the product, especially if it's on the production. So we are all talking the same thing. Okay. All right. I think I covered it on time. So yeah, so this is all about the DevSecOps and the key milestones, the MVP approaches. And I'm here to answer any questions for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for an awesome presentation. Now we'll open the floor for questions.
Sure.
Folks, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Or if you're too shy, then put it in the chat, whichever works best for you.
Yep. Yeah, unmute and ask. It can be a great question. No question is bad question.
Would we get a copy of the presentation? I see a question.
Of course, you will get the copy of the presentation. I guess the session is also recorded, so you will have that in our YouTube videos as well. Maybe give us a week time, I guess.
Yeah, we'll upload the video and we will have a PDF as well sent out to you through the Meetup link.
Hey, Lakshmi, this is Gopal. I want to ask you about, you mentioned about the metrics. There is a lot of them, right? For each one of the phases you're talking about. What sort of baseline and what sort of, improvement have you seen in companies? Maybe pick one or two examples. You don't have to go through all of them. Maybe pick something with respect to continuous integration and one with continuous delivery.
Sure.
And what sort of trend have you seen with companies going through the dojo?
Sure. Again, great question, and thanks for asking that, Gopal. So most of the teams, right, the product teams, so we take the MVP approach. So we start with the continuous integration first. So we do have continuous integration DevSecOps Dojos that we run, and the teams, when they come in the dojos, right, they are either not familiar, like, what is in the continuous integration, why do I care about, like, they have less understanding, like, oh, I need to keep my trunk, I need to merge code check-in daily, I need to have make sure my trunk is green, or teams are not doing the daily builds, or they are not aware of the sonar queue validations. Especially a lot of developers and testers who develop code, right? They are happily coding, but blissfully unaware of violations or vulnerabilities that are coming later. Okay. So what we did in these dojo sessions is we uncover these the missing knowledge of what kind of validation rules that are important for a developer to know, and like understand a bit more about Sonar tool itself. So what I've seen is that the folks are so busy, and in writing the application code, there's hardly no time, or either they don't talk about these tools and how much of these features they can leverage, right? So they need to step back and set up these right tools first, right? Like the plugin I said, right? A Sonar linked plugin, right? Because it's important to have these things in place, awareness of the tools and how much benefit they produce, and because these tools already give you warnings if you're writing code that is not in compliance, right, or compatible, or it's going to create a vulnerability issue later on. So having that knowledge and having this right set of plugins installed has helped so much. So we see a lot of errors reduced when it goes to build and deploys in a test environment. With and without, there's a huge difference. So, and then the teams are now comfortable learning that tool, and they feel more confident while they are developing the code. They're already seeing the warning, so maybe they're changing the style they're writing, or for example, even if they want to download an open source library, right? They are very clear. Is it something that is compliance? Is it okay to install these kind of open sources or not, right? So that all those checks and balances, it will tell us. So it's more confidence that they gained. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah. So what I take away from that is that they don't even have a baseline coming into the dojo. It's about getting to a baseline is what you're talking about.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And that's just an example of continuous integration, right? So every team comes up with their own challenges. Some teams really want to know more about automation testing, performance testing, and they want to, few teams have challenges on monitoring. They don't know how to create this, how to use the Splunk dashboards that are meaningful for them. So they don't have time, first of all, right? As a team, they don't discuss it. What is my criteria for custom dashboards? What is really matters for my team, for my application? So I think the tools are out there, but it's the lack of awareness, and then lack of awareness of using the tools the right way is missing, is what I've seen.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for that. Any other questions?
Yes, Lakshmi, this is Ella. I'm just curious, what's more important when, I guess, sort of doing a sales pitch for the dojo? Is it to have buy-in from the teams that will be involved, or from management?
Definitely the management, right? The teams are like, oh yeah, my leadership wants me to do this, I'll do this. So it's more for management, the leaders, how they want to see their teams progress. So I feel like more awareness to the leadership, change agents, on how they want to see their product teams mature over the course of, year or a quarter, right? Quarterly. So the initiation first begins with the leadership. So we give, this from the sales pitch, right? From marketing standpoint, we talk to the leaders first, because that's where the initiation begins. That's where the nomination, right? The leaders, most of the leaders buy into it. Again, our goal as a coaches is to help the leaders, the importance of why we do this, right? And then once you have that leadership bought in, then rest of the things will get in very smooth. So.
And I'm just kind of curious, like, what, if you happen to know, what kind of success rate comes from participating in these dojos?
Oh, so what we do is, Ella, we have a survey that we, after every dojo, like 4 to 6 weeks of dojo, right? We have this survey with few questions, about 5 or 6 questions, like, what do you think about this dojo? Have you learned a bit? Or would you want to do it again, or recommend this dojo for others, other teams? So we have a great success rate. I would say like 70 to 80% recommend other product teams to get into the dojos. So we keep track of our surveys also. I think we should keep track of it, so we are not just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? So
Yeah. And you mentioned it takes like something like 4 to 6 weeks. And is that like, sorry, yeah. And is that like, 8 hours a day for that whole time, or how much time does it actually take?
Again, it varies from, I guess, companies to companies, but what we have done in the past is like, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the challenge areas, and each week 5 hours of time commitment. That includes like breakout sessions and workshop sessions and show and tell and retros. However, they also have homework. So the teams come up with the user stories, but that is different. So the dojo session timings itself is 5 hours, but I think the team also works on the homework assignments, right? Which I'm thinking like another 5 hours or so. So roughly about 10 hours per week. But again, it varies.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Any other questions? Okay, silence means no. So we'll head out to closing then. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on the days when we are just wrapping up with summer break. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. I hope you all got something from this session. I definitely learned a lot about DevOps. So thank you, Lakshmi, for a great presentation. And please remember to sign up for our upcoming session on September 8th, where Jesse Fevell, the author of Untapped Agility, is going to present Agile Career Victory: 5 shifts to more influence, impact, and income. We all want to go to that session and learn how to increase our income and influence and impact. So remember to sign up for Loudoun Agile Network September session. Thank you so much for joining. And we will send you guys the link of the recording and the presentation PDF.
Thank you, Anju. Thank you, Meenakshi. And yes, tune in for the September meetup. Jesse is really great speaker, and I always learn so much from him. So again, thanks everyone, and feel free to get connected in LinkedIn or ask me any follow-up questions. I'm happy to help. Have a great night.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you. Thank you.